Surviving America's Autocratic Oligarchy, Part 2. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's talk about it. So I decided that I'm going to start, not make up new titles because it's just, I don't want to waste my time with it. So we're going to go with surviving in this environment that we are in. And essentially, I want to come out and keep you updated on what's happening. In terms of the courts, I'm not following all the cases. There's like over 70 and probably more now. But when they get to the Supreme Court level and when there is Supreme Court briefs submitted, at that point I will definitely go back to the legal briefs and explain what's going on to you. There are a lot of issues that will go up to the Supreme Court, whether that be the firings of for-cause employees or the firings generally, the transgender ban, the usurping Congress's spending power, birthright citizenship, not enforcing laws as the executive is supposed to under the Constitution. All of these things are likely to get to the Supreme Court, and we'll see in which direction the Supreme Court goes. And in terms of employees who are at will, federal employees, I don't see a very strong argument, but I'm not an employment lawyer. So if there's animus in firing, I don't know if there are any sort of rules or procedures that can be used, or whether, and then the Supreme Court will talk about this, I'm sure, in the Hampton-Dellinger case, whether for-cause employees can just be, fired right away without procedures that are codified in statute. So that's going on. That those fights are coming, and whether that be federal workers, whether that be environmental concerns, whether that be educational concerns, whether that be the restoration of U.S. aid, whether that be the Ukraine assistance, whether that be Gaza, the Gaza predicament at this point, all those things are sort of gathering steam, I suppose, and it's coming at us. And we should be prepared for each of those things. And I talked about Ukraine in the previous video. So today what I'm going to do is talk about a few things that came to mind. Number one, there's news, and this is unconfirmed because it is just from one journalist on Blue Sky, that Elon Musk, his mother, and one of his kids, I think the same kid who went to the White House, were seen getting off of Air Force One and then taking Marine One straight to the White House, and then going into the White House, and the rumor was that they were going to stay there. Stay the night there. Now, I don't know if it's a true story or not, but if it turns out to be the case, that, by the way, that is what oligarchy looks like, people. Taxpayer money paying for private citizens for the usage of the aircraft that is known as Air Force One, and then taking the aircraft that is known as Marine One to the White House to spend the night. The richest man in the world, who was the biggest donor of Donald Trump for his campaign, and who is now a senior advisor to the president without having divested from his various companies that have defense contracts with our government. So that's what oligarchy looks like. And if if you ask Caroline, the press secretary, about it, she will say that, when those aircrafts are not being used by the President of the United States, they're not Air Force One or Marine One. And that's a technical way out of it. But we know what we're seeing with our eyes if this is the truth. So that's one topic. Second topic, I wanted to just sort of tell you that the United States has over 3,900 nuclear weapons, and Russia has over 4,000 of them. And Europe, between France and United Kingdom, have, I think, about 300 of them or so. And India and Pakistan among them have about 300 or so. These 300 or so nuclear weapons is more than sufficient to eradicate humanity. So, and I remember what I said, these countries with 150 or, together 300 nuclear weapons, nuclear missiles that are long range to medium range, are enough to destroy the world over. So Europe has the same, effective same power as the US and Russia, because having 3,000 nuclear weapons or 4,000 nuclear weapons is over the top in such a sort of, I'm wearing Versace, the gaudiest kind of gaudy, unnecessary fashion. It's just, I don't know if that was the proper analogy to give or not, but, it is what it is. It is, so the point I'm trying to make here is that nuclear weapons strengthen militaries up to a point. So when Europe backs Ukraine and helps Ukraine win the war, the invasion by Russia, it has the same effective destructive power on Russia, because most of Russia is closer to Europe than it's towards the Pacific Ocean. The more you go to East Russia, the more it becomes Siberia, and it's cold and not as populated as the western front of Russia. So, yeah, it's mutually assured destruction if they even step into the nuclear arena. So don't think that equation really changes much if United States pulls out of NATO and refuses to help Ukraine. I'm talking about that worst case scenario. Break to the next topic. There's talk on the right about impeaching judges, federal judges, who are ruling against Donald Trump's executive orders and setting up cases on constitutional issues for the Supreme Court to resolve. And there are people on the right who are now up in arms about impeaching these judges. Impeaching these judges is a futile exercise and waste of taxpayer money, because you simply don't have the votes in the Senate to impeach federal judges who are ruling on the basis of the rule of law. I'm not sure that you even have the votes to primarily impeach in the House, let alone get convicted in the Senate. So it would be sort of a political exercise if MAGA takes it on. And then the last interesting thing that I want, no, not the last, the penultimate talk that I want to talk to you about is it by design or is it just a side effect that Donald Trump's approval ratings are being buffered by Elon Musk's ratings. By having Elon around, Donald is helping his own approval ratings. While Elon takes the brunt of the unpopularity, Donald looks like the lesser of two evils. Also gives MAGA an excuse to be upset at the government without being upset at Donald himself. However Doji is working or whatever else, and whatever Elon is doing, they can be against that more easily than they can of Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is the one who is orchestrating it, and somebody else, another foreign power, is orchestrating Donald. That has become clear now. So I don't know if it's intentional, but that's how it's playing out. Because Americans are now more anti-Elon than they are anti-Trump. And there's a xenophobic element to that, in a way that you talk about Elon Musk as an immigrant and somebody who at some point may not have his immigration status properly updated, thing of the past, long time ago. That brings up a certain sort of, if you're trying to be pro-immigrant, you don't go after people for petty things like that. You go after people like Elon Musk for going on to Joe Rogan and lying and talking about Social Security being a Ponzi scheme, talking about how go to doji.gov and check out what we're doing. You can see the savings, but you don't know where they're coming from. That's what the other side of the story is. And I want to sort of talk to you, the last thing is about the value of human life. The United States, because we still value human life, at least we did, until we stopped providing necessary aid to countries that need our aid. When we started bullying democratic leaders of embattled countries who rely on our aid and support to keep up their democracy and stop an authoritarian dictator from taking them over. That's where our country was. And we as Americans can't be quiet when lies go about saying something to the order of Ukraine started the war. No, that didn't happen. Even to this day, all that needs to happen for the war to be over is for Russia to walk out of Ukraine, is for Putin to just withdraw his troops from Ukrainian territory. And yes, that includes Crimea. So that's where we were as a country. And now we're in a position now where we don't know whether we can say that we stand up for democracy or if we are the leaders of the free world. Vladimir Zelensky is far more a leader of the free world today than the incumbent president of the United States, who is talking about terraforming Gaza, which is not going to happen. He's talking about removing Palestinians from their homes, ethnic cleansing, and shifting them somewhere else, and making Gaza the Middle East Riviera. That sort of inhumane talk denigrates the value of life, of human life, that Americans at least held close. But we've seen that when Americans say they're pro-life, the ones who say they're pro-life are actually anti-life, because they don't care about the life of the mother. They don't care about rape or incest exceptions. They only care about the fetus, and when the fetus comes out of the mother, they don't even care about the fetus anymore. That's what pro-life means in America. When the value of human life is to ensure that there is less mortality as possible, whether that be of babies or mothers. That's something as basic as American. And when that slippery slope started, we now see we are at a precipice where, and by the way, Donald Trump takes credit for that ruling that overdid Roe versus Wade. So then we are at a point now where American safety nets like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security benefits are being threatened by MAGA Republicans. They're saying they're not going to do it, but remember, Donald Trump said that Project 2025 really didn't have anything to do with him. But right now, Russell Vought is in charge of the Office of Budget Management, and there are people who were part of Project 2025 who are in Donald Trump's administration, and the policies are quite clearly aligned, if not, taken from Project 2025. So we are seeing a dismantling of our country and our country's value on human life by indiscriminately firing federal workers, by threatening to take away sustenance from people who are in desperate need, all to be able to cut taxes on the ultra-rich 0.01%, of which Elon Musk is one person, because he is the richest man in the world and he's an American. So I wanted to come out and talk to you and brief you on this, this is where we stand as a country. Resist and speak up in support of Ukraine. Resist and speak up against the terraforming of Gaza. Resist and speak up when our basic value of holding some value to human life is not thrown away. That we can work towards a more inclusive society with safety nets if we can just fairly tax the richest Americans in the country, who also happen to be the richest people in the world. So if they are taxed, if corporations are taxed the way they should be, if CEOs are taxed without taking advantage of their tax loopholes, then there will be enough money in the coffers not only to have our defense, but also for federal aid for foreign countries, but also for our education, our medicine. That's how you solve the problem. You don't take Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security away to be able to give tax cuts to the ultra-rich when they're effectively not paying their percentage of taxes that they should be paying. Because there are so many tax loopholes and tax breaks, and Donald Trump just wants to make those permanent. And we must rise up to that. With that said, I've gone on long enough. Thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.